Good morning. Court will come to order. It is Monday, April the 11th. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, and the Kerr County Commissioners Court is now in session. If you would, please rise for the prayer and pledge. Led by Commissioner Lewis.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, let's lift you up in praise as we just try to live our lives in your image and reflect upon how you truly want us to live. We'd like to ask you for the blessings with the rain. We got really, really dry. We did have a little shower in parts of the county last night, but minimal amount. So anything you send our way, we would appreciate. And Lord, help us guide this court in our deliberations this day and all days. We ask this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Remind everyone to please turn your phones and ringers off and turn it to vibrate so that you don't interrupt the proceedings. The first item we have on the agenda is always public input. This is a very important part of our agenda. We welcome the public to come and talk to us and tell us what's on their mind. Sometimes even if we disagree, but we still need to hear. We need to know what you think, what your concern is. A few weeks ago, we had, I would say, a active discussion about lighting up the courthouse over some of the international events. And during that period of time, I received an email from a member of the public who had written a special prayer about Ukraine. And I invited him to come today and do this in the public input part. So, we asked that everybody limit their remarks to 3 minutes. But I would, if I could, call Mr. Knight to the podium. And if you would like for us to stand, we will, or we can sit, however you prefer.
We're good. We're good just like this. Yesterday, I was led to prepare a prayer that gets to the situation where we're at, and perhaps what's prayed on this will include the intention of the goodwill meant in the prayer crafted that the judge saw. So in that respect, Father, yesterday is indicated on our calendars as Palm Sunday, where your word describes the great anticipation that the crowds had for a popular person to save them. Your word also goes on to imply that they were disappointed, for in just a few days they ended up doing a complete reversal, saying, "Crucify him." Father, I thank you for this Holy Week, where we go from reading about the most popular one to becoming an outcast, and the people living back over 2,000 years ago, not knowing that it was your plan all along to save them and us your way. Thank you, Father, that the next Sunday on our calendars is titled Easter, where we will celebrate his resurrection, when we will be reminded that his death for our sins include that we can live in freedom, a life full of your promises. This country, based upon the founding documents, history, one nation under God, and in you we trust, among other declarations, is focused on truths. Jesus, yesterday when I was crafting this prayer, I had the impression that you were reminding me that this community has stood against the things that you are also against. For example, during the times county leadership was being pressured to do away with traditional celebrations and displays, they, the leadership, responded with a firm resolve in saying, no, that is not going to happen. We will continue. I also believe that you are pleased with the opening prayer and Pledge of Allegiance to the flag with the words of one nation under God spoken at these meetings. You gave me the thought that all these acts of faith have helped protect this community and provided wisdom to deal with difficult issues where other communities have not been so fortunate. So I pray of blessings in the name of Jesus for everyone here and their families to have a wonderful Holy Week filled with joy, peace, and hope for a secure future. And may what is done here today be pleasing to you, Jesus. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Greenham. Next subject on the agenda is the Commissioner's comments. Why don't we change it up and go with Commissioner Ford first?
Got plenty of wind and not much rain, and not a lot of hope in the forecast coming up. But I want to urge everybody to be careful with fires and watch out for them or anything you do around the house that could cause a fire. Our volunteer fire departments are tired, and remember they are volunteers and have jobs, everyday jobs, just like the rest of us, and then do double duty when they have to go out on calls. I did pour out 2/10 of an inch from the rain gauge here at the courthouse. I don't know when it came or what happened, but something happened. So we got a little bit there. Another thing, we got several events coming up Saturday, Saturday, Easter celebrations in Ingram, Easter egg hunts for the kids at the park, I believe, are right behind the fire station. So check your calendars and bring your kids out for stuff like that. That's all.
Oops, I forgot. We had some more public comment.
Oh,
So we'll just interrupt and go back to public comment. We've got Ms. Guerrero and Ms. Hughes here today. And by the way, they were actually first on the list, and they allowed me to call Mr. McKnight first. I appreciate your courtesy.
No problem.
No problem. Karen Guerrero and Brenda Hughes were both with Kerr Pets Alive. I'm the president of the board, and we appreciate having this opportunity today to speak with you, as we always do when we come and speak to the court. Kerr Pets Alive, as you well may know, is a nonprofit organization that serves Kerr County animal services in the community with resources to save animals from euthanasia at that facility. We also serve the community with their needs to keep their pets home and safe. We come here today to talk about a few things, to update you that we're involved with. There is a need right now at Animal Services. Reagan's not here today, but sometimes Animal Services takes in a lot of animals due to some sort of seizure situation, crisis situation, and right now they had a huge intake of dogs. And that puts a little stress on the rest of the shelter as far as the usual impounds. And so they are handling that very well right now, but we want to urge the community that to really take care of their pets right now, keep them home and safe, reclaim their pets if they're missing from the shelter. We offer help with reclaim fees as well. And consider adopting from that shelter. The staff, again, is challenged with a large load right now, and they're doing a great job with that. So I want to encourage that. We did receive a great donation to help offset some fees with reclaims and adoptions. We've done that before with adoptions. That's part of our service to animal control. I will work out some details with Reagan about that. Another update is our Kerr County Animal Services Advisory Board. We met March the 10th for the first time this year. That committee is composed of myself, Commissioner-elect Reagan Gibbons, a person from a private shelter, and a veterinarian. We walked away from that March the 10th meeting. We had a large crowd. We meet here in the courtroom on Thursdays quarterly. We invite the public to attend those meetings. We walked away from our March the 10th meeting with some thoughts about fire safety at the shelter. Our job is to make some suggestions to animal control about how to improve operations. Fire safety is a big issue there. There's been a lot of shelter fires in Texas, and we only have a fire extinguisher at that facility, and that is all that's required, by the way, but we'd like to see some sort of fire system in place, and we are willing, Kerr Pets Alive is also willing to help with funding of that. The other thing that we discussed at that meeting, which was a little bit of a fiery discussion, was trapping protocol. And that is something that has been going on for a long time in Kerr County, and we're glad that the county is willing to listen to some of the suggestions we have about some different ways that other counties our size are doing that. Again, we meet quarterly, Kerr County Animal Services Advisory Board. We invite the public to attend our meetings. They're posted, and the agenda's posted, and come and share. Our community is growing rapidly, and we have a great need for great animal services. Was that my 3 minutes?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
My computer, I'm normally over there.
Okay,
and-
okay, sorry.
Sorry.
So anyway, support us. We need a great animal services facility, and we need your support and knowledge about the facility. And reach out to us if you ever want a tour, and we'll give you a tour.
Okay, on another note, as Karen said, KPA continues to work daily to support the needs of Kerr County Animal Services, and that is our taxpayer-funded facility. We provide medical care, volunteer support, we facilitate rescue and adoptions, and we fund a lot of the supplies and the services. So speaking of funds, it takes money to do what we do. The county is growing rapidly, we all know that, and so is the pet population, and unfortunately, irresponsible pet ownership contributes to, the influx of animals coming to our shelter. So, we invite the community and the court to mark your calendars for our first annual fundraising gala. It's called the Fur Ball. The event will be held October the 1st at the Museum of Western Art. Tickets are available on our website, which is KerrvillePetsAlive.com for tax-deductible donation. We have already had tremendous support for this event, and tickets are selling quickly, so everybody go to the website and buy a ticket. We have different levels of sponsorship available to both individuals and businesses. And just remember, we are an all-volunteer organization. All of our funds go directly to help the animals of Kerr County. And so this is a great, great cause to support. Thank you.
And Ms. Village.
Good morning. I'm Lindsay Gullidge. I'm here on behalf of Leadership Kerr County Class 36, the division of the Kerrville Area Chamber of Commerce. And I just wanted to address the item 1.21, the red flag warning for county parks. As you know, our Easter Fest event is going to be on Saturday, and part of that event is a cook-off. Well, the cook-off being fire pits and barbecue pits, just wanted to kind of address something that we maybe can hopefully do to mitigate and keep the consideration of the event, the cook-off part of the event in play, because that part of the event brings a lot of participation to our leadership event, Easter Fest.
Ms. Hills, let me cut you
Yes,
off.
sure.
I think that'd be best we wait for that agenda item is called,
Yeah.
because we can't give you any input right now.
No problem.
Back.
Okay.
But we do have input to give you.
Okay.
No, just be patient.
Okay.
We'll get to that.
Yes, sir.
I think we'll have a much better discussion about the
Yes, sir.
Easter Fest.
Okay.
We think you've come up with a creative solution.
Okay. And I've got some
Might
as
be a
well.
good time to remind everybody too, the public comment at the beginning is for something that's not on the agenda. Yeah.
Can you wait around, Lindsay?
Okay. Yes. of
Okay,
course, yes.
Okay. Back to the commissioner's reports.
Two things. One, I'm not sure if everyone knew about it or not, but there was a pretty serious fire in Comfort over the weekend. Manny's restaurant burned down basically, as did the apartments that were right next door. At least half of the units were burned totally, and they all may be unlivable, I'm not sure. I know 12 families were displaced. But those prayers go with those families and people and owners of businesses. Not sure exactly how it started, but pretty serious. And the other thing is just for everyone to mark your calendars. Grace Academy will be having their annual car show over at First Baptist Church. It'll be on the 30th of April, that morning. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of activities going on. There'll be food, activities for kids, but also a lot of cars. People that like to look at cars. Last year I think we had over 60 entries, and it's kind of headed up by Ty and Crystal Smith. They do a fantastic job, and I encourage everyone to come by and help. It's a big fundraiser for the school.
Thank you. Here's it too.
We do have an Easter Fest coming. I understand the concern about fires, and the city has put out a prevention of open pit cooking in city parks. That does not affect our county park. It's not, we're ignoring the dangers. We have arranged for the Center Point Volunteer Fire Department to be there during the entire Easter Fest celebration Saturday. So we expect that to at least keep the doors open and be safe.
There was another fire, at Camp Bullis over the weekend. It was
Yeah.
about 2,800 acres or whatever it was, so that was pretty wild. This week we got Passover, Good Friday, Easter Fest, Easter, lots of kids out, and just watch out for them. Lots of tourists that are here. I was thinking about it this week. I'm driving behind people going, why are they driving so slow? They're here because they have a week off. They're enjoying the hill country. They're refreshing themselves. Their soul is replenished. And I'm wanting them to get the heck out of the way so I can do what I have to do, because I've forgotten how pretty it is here. But it is. So enjoy it. Enjoy the Easter week. And I'm sad to say that there'll be no fireworks for San Jacinto Day, but think of another way to do it. Chase somebody with a gun. I'm just kidding. That's what happened on San Jacinto Day. Chase somebody down with a gun. Anyway, just remember it is San Jacinto Day and you can't shoot off any fireworks. So God bless Texas. That's all I got.
Amen.
Very well.
Hard to follow up, isn't it?
On that note, let's move on to consideration. We've got several timed items at 9 o'clock, so I'm going to take them in order. The first one is 1.1, which is to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to accept the annual financial report, which includes the independent auditor report and audited financial statements for the period ending September 30, 2021. This is last year's fiscal year annual audit report. Debbie Fraser.
Good afternoon, or morning. I'm caught a little off guard by that comment, but I do have a couple of clients I'd like to chase down, so if you're giving me permission. I would like to thank Tanya and her crew, as well as the entire county. Tracy, I know we're very invasive for a week, and they're so anxious for us to leave, but I appreciate everything they do to help us get this done. If you, I gave you two booklets, and the thicker one is the actual financial audit for the county. On page 1 is your unmodified independent auditor's report, and basically that means that after adjustments, your financial statements are fairly stated and materially correct. If you turn to page 15 and 16, this is your statement of net position, and it's on a full accrual basis, so it includes all of your debt, all of your fixed assets, your pension liabilities, and your compensated absences. Typically, in the report we're going to look at next, is your modified accrual basis, and it does not include those items because it's not the way you prepare your budget. It's not a current resource type. So your total assets at the end of the year were $159 million, and then you had deferred outflows of resources, which were $7.8 million. This makes up basically your prepaids, pension, TCDRS payments from January 1st through September 30th. Then your liabilities on the next page of 16 were $81,055,151, and then your deferred inflows of resources were $4.9 million, and then your net position was $81 million, and what was available for use unrestricted is $16.1 million. I'd like you to turn to your balance sheet. And your balance sheet is not on a full accrual basis, so it does not include your fixed assets, your debt, your pension liabilities, and your compensated absences. At the end of the year, your Total governmental funds had total assets of $65.3 million. The bulk of that, or $27.4 million, of cash and investments. If you turn to page 21 and 22, the balance sheet continues, but it has your liabilities and your fund balances. The total liabilities were $31 million. The deferred inflows of resources or unavailable revenue, which is basically uncollected taxes, was $2.9 million. And then your total fund balances were $31.3 million. Of that, you had an unassigned fund balance of $16.6 million. That's very important because the GFOA recommends that you have over 4 to 6 months of unassigned fund balance. You guys currently have over 6 months. I'm going to have you turn back to page 63. This is the budget to actual for the general fund. And I want to point out that you about halfway down the page, you see your total revenues of $30,656,710. You had budgeted to bring in $28.8 million. And so that was a positive variance of $1.8 million. And the positive variances really occurred, in your other taxes, which was primarily sales tax of $1.5 million. And then in your fees of office of $865,000. Your total expenditures were $28.4 million budgeted, and you brought in, you spent $26.2 million, leaving you with a positive positive variance of $2.3 million. You actually budgeted a net change in fund balance of a negative $687,967, and you actually had a positive net change of $3,445,964, leaving you with a positive variance of $4.1 million. On page 64 is your Road and Bridge Fund. And the Road and Bridge Fund total revenues, which again are about halfway down the page, were $3 million budgeted, and you brought in $2.9 million. So you had a negative variance of $98,000. The total expenditures were almost $3.5 million, and you had total expenditures of $4 million. So you had a positive variance there of $581,000. You had budgeted a net change in fund balance of a negative $68,800, and you actually had a positive variance of $414,540. The next page I'd like you to look at is page 66. This is your net pension liability and related ratios. The last column is very important. It gives you your net pension liability, and that's about 2/3 down the page. It's $7 million, about $7.7 million. Your percentage funded is about 90.83%. And again, GFOA recommends that anything funded over 70% is considered in good standing. So you're well above that, 20% above that. I'm going to go to the next small booklet, which is your federal and state award compliance. And you had unmodified opinions on both of the expenditure report as well as the government accounting standards report, or the yellow book report. On page 6 is your schedule of finding and questions costs for federal. And I just want to point out that you had unmodified opinions on every one of those, internal control over major programs, as well as compliance with those major programs. We audited the Clean Water State Revolving Fund in the federal. And then if you turn over to page 8, this is your state funding. And again, you had unmodified reports in every single item. You did not qualify as a low risk because this was actually the first year that your state funds exceeded the $750,000. But I would like to point out that we did audit the TIDC improvement grant, and we had no administrative or compliance requirements that were not met. The final thing is our letter, and our letter basically just has what our responsibilities are, your responsibilities, and I want to point out that we did have a policy change. So the GASB issued a fiduciary statement, GASB 84, so that changed your policy. It had us reevaluate special revenue funds and agency funds. And as a result, there were some accounts or funds that were agency funds in years past that had to be converted to special revenue funds. So you did have a prior period adjustment for $299,866 of reclassified special special revenue funds. And then we also had a $979,952 of agency funds that were not required to be reported in prior years. And they're really only in one statement, and it's your fiduciary statements, which I did not go over. But those consist of accounts that are in each of your county clerk's office that they keep separately. All types of district offices, your tax assessor, collector. It includes the funds that he collects for all of your cities and other districts. And so that is what created the prior period adjustment on that. We also did have a Center Point wastewater projects were capitalized in the amount of $687,153, and this had to do with one of your grants that we had expensed in prior years related to Fund 32. We had one verbal comment that we made regarding payroll, and we just discussed it with the auditor's office as well as the judge, and it did not show up in your communication of those charged with governance. Thank you. That's all I have. Do you have any questions? I know that's a lot to go over in a short period of time. And
Any questions?
Looks good.
It looks great. Yeah, and for most of the matters that we did discuss with you, as you well know, we have addressed.
yes.
And so we have a clean report, which is always nice to have.
I think I'll just make a comment, you went through it, but I think it's important for the public to know is the way we budget as if we're largely because we're fully employed. So it is pretty common that we budget a deficit, not a significant amount, but some amount. And I don't believe as long as I've been a commissioner that deficit has ever turned into be a true deficit, because we're never 100% employed. So, I think the number was a really big swing this year. I think we had 600,000+ deficit, and we ended up with 4.1. A big swing. Usually it's not that great, but usually that is the case. And I just bring that up. We're getting ready to go into budget season, and when the term comes out, that's like we may do again, have a deficit budget. It doesn't really mean that we think we're going to end up with a deficit. It's the way we have to do our budget.
And I look at it in the audience and I see puzzled looks. It's not only because we budget for full employment and we're not always fully employed. That is a major reason we do have these excesses. But the other one is, I call it, and it's a phrase I adopted from Commissioner Blue, it's budget culture. And our budget culture in this conservative county is every department, every office plans for every possible contingency that can happen and puts it in their budget. And all those contingencies don't happen. Thank God. They don't happen. But that's why you see the surplus at the end of the year when we actually budgeted for a negative, and we end up with a positive. So I know that it took me a few years to figure this out.
Me
You
too.
can't get accustomed to it, but it works.
You were pretty nervous at first.
Y'all scared me
You
to
were
death.
adamant.
But
We don't do this
but
at all.
I see the puzzle looks out there, you get accustomed to this. It works. And it actually works very well. And thanks to Tanya, especially, the auditor's office has done a great job, and all the other people. And we very much respect and appreciate our relationship with Armstrong.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Reagan.
Yeah, let me make one more comment, and I agree with everything you said, but the other thing is that, all of our department heads and elected officials really are very conservative and do a really good job of putting things out for bid. Even if they're not required to go out for bid, they shop around and get the best price. So, a lot of the credit goes to all our employees and department heads, elected officials that really do a good job on the budget. And again, Tanya, who keeps track of it all and makes sure that everyone has the right amount of funds in the various line items. We do budget members throughout the year. Do a good job.
Good. And we want to recognize the department heads and officials, what a great job they are doing, and how conservative they do budget. This county is actually very well run.
It is. I typically don't say that out loud because, we want to stay independent and fair-minded, but you do have, you meet the requirements that we all are excited about when you audit somebody. We don't have a large risk assessment for each department, and so that's very important when we do our risk assessments. But you also are conservative enough that you do have over 6 months of unassigned fund balance, and then your pension liabilities are probably may not get you in trouble down the line. I've preached to Tanya about the retiree health, but that's one of your liabilities that continues to increase. But as far as pension, it's hard to go to a city and tell them that they're below the GFOA 70%, and that they need to increase their contributions.
I was pleased to say we exceed that by 20%.
Yes, yes.
That's good.
We have to,
Yes.
vote that. I move to approve.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the annual audit as presented. Any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Frazier. Item 1.2 is consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding Ever Life Extension Vehicle. Trustee Quincy.
Well, good morning. It's a good talk to follow because we came in under budget. As everyone knows, the Extension Office has been on the search for a van for the county kiddos to replace our current one. And due to low inventory and high demand of vehicles, we have been unsuccessful. However, we've been exploring different options away from a van. We've kind of explored avenues for a Ford Explorer, which is more practical. I'll go into that here in a little bit. But essentially, the original court order was $39,021 originally budgeted for the van. Since we couldn't find one within those budget parameters, we started exploring the Ford Explorer route. After that, we've moved $3,250 into our contingency or capital outlay for vehicle maintenance, which leaves us $35,771 for our vehicle budget. We've explored used vehicles, new vehicles from local dealerships, and a new vehicle through a lease program through Enterprise Fleet, which is what the van was approved for, and a new vehicle from Ken Stopel, $37,061.60. Enterprise Fleet vehicle under the same parameters, purchasing the vehicle and a complete maintenance package for 4 years, came in at $33,489, which is roughly $2,000 under what we have budgeted. So, from a practical standpoint, we are losing some seats, but I think we can utilize it from multiple standpoints as far as still getting to haul kids around, Agents can use it for educational programs that we do, still hauling kids around, attending professional developments and trainings. So I think we'll be able to utilize it more than we would a van, just hauling kids. Asking for approval to seek out or purchase the Ford Explorer through Enterprise Fleet.
How many seats are you getting on this?
5,
5 fewer kids going wherever.
correct. And we still have the county truck.
One thing, and I visited with them on this, the van is used. I mean, it served its purpose.
We know that.
With a busy summer coming up and what have you, hauling kids around, they need to get something. And they need to do something pretty quick. Okay. We don't need to rely on that van anymore, hauling kids up and down the road.
I personally think that an Explorer type vehicle is a safer vehicle than a van.
They are.
Long time, so.
We started doing that in the school districts a lot more. You know, it might mean taking a couple extra vehicles or parents being involved or what have you, but most of the time you're not hauling kids, you're not filling it to capacity anyway.
Correct. And visiting with Enterprise, these are ready for order. We can put in an order immediately. And he said turnaround time is about 20 to 22 weeks. So we'll miss that summer 4-H busy time frame, but we can get it on the books and get it ordered.
Things aren't getting any better.
I make a motion to approve the vehicle purchase to a Ford Explorer with the Enterprise
Second.
lease system.
I second that motion.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Thank you.
Excellent.
Unanimous.
They said we don't need to work up a contract since Kerr County's already a customer. The quote would be sufficient for the county judge to sign. I don't know if you want to do that today or later.
Just leave it with Jody.
Perfect.
Thank you, Justin.
Always have
Thank y'all.
staff
Appreciate
sign
it.
Yes, report. Item 1.3, still on the 9 o'clock docket. Apologize. Update regarding Senate Bill 6 and its impact on magistration. Judge Bishop.
And poor Judge Mr. Good, I've talked to Judge Mr. about this and let her explain it, but I'm bringing one to put it on the agenda largely because this is another unfunded mandate. And again, the legislature has done something and passed some new rules, this is SB 6, that is going to cost all counties a lot more money. So Kathy?
Good morning, Kathy Mitchell, Justice of Peace Precinct 3. Like Commissioner Letts said, we were visiting about a week or so ago about the Senate Bill 6, which was signed into law by Governor Abbott back in September of 2021. It was implemented, we started having to implement this as of April 1st. So it's really, right now, not enough time has gone by for this program. For me, I'm speaking for myself, not the other JPs. 2 of them are here, they can speak for themselves. For me, not enough time has gone by. I'm not in that rotation as of yet for magistration, so I'm not sure how that's going to impact me. I don't know at this time. Also, I have questions that I have visited with the county attorney about that we will get back, she'll get back with me when she has some answers on those. Also, I think the main thing right now is that this is changes to the magistration process. How much it's going to impact, I do not know at this time. It's a kind of wait and see type situation to where but I and Commissioner Letts decided we wanted to give you all a heads up just in case it might impact an area in the budget. So I think that's it right now that I have to say, unless you have any questions of me, or maybe the county attorney might know something at this time. Okay.
Well, you said changes specifically what?
It's the document, the handout that I
Would
gave.
you layer that out
Yes,
for us?
the handout that I
I'll read
gave.
this later.
Okay, that is a summary of Senate Bill 6 that I gave you. So basically what it is we've had the OCA, Office of Court Administrations, has had to create a system. And it is called the Public Safety Report System. So now when we'd go out to the jail, we used to just go in, do our paperwork, everything was there for us in a packet. We'd have it, do handwritten, do our magistration part. Now we have to go out and, because this is a beginning program, it's right now a lot of data entry. What it's going to do later on, I don't know. But so this program is done, like I said, they created, OCA created it. We have to put in who's been arrested, if they have a federal, ID, FBI number, SID number, all that. And then we have to be able to put in the offense. We have to put in everything. We have to look at this public report. And it shows that we had to look at it to make a judgment on what type of bond that we're going to set. Then after that process, we can save that. This is my understanding. They might be able to explain it more because they've already magistrated. But I sat with Judge Horny for 2 days. So after that, we do the regular paperwork. We're doing it twice, basically, at this time. Because right now, our program does not interface with this other program, right? So they're stating that they're trying to do that, but now it doesn't. So we're putting data entry in basically twice.
If I understand it correctly, there's a whole bunch of forms that we have to use now. We've got to have the data entry person put the data in to create the forms, because they have to be reviewed by the magistrate. And the magistrate has to certify that they've reviewed the forms. Well, we've got to hire somebody to be able to do the data entry, get the forms, so that JPs can certify that they've reviewed them as required by the new state law.
Thus the unfunded mandate.
Yes.
Right,
And
right.
that's more of a clerical type position. Would have to be supervised by one of the offices or departments when they talk to the sheriff's office or whatever. But this is something that the county is going to have to provide.
Now, that's one new employee?
Yes, it may not even be a full-time.
I was going to say, this time we don't know.
But we have to do it. We've got to have somebody put the data in the system to spit out the forms so that the magistrates have the forms available to review, and they can certify that they reviewed them in their magistration process. Kind of?
Well, Judge French is magistrate, Judge Horn is magistrate. They're going to be able to tell you more about that issue at this point, so. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So at this time, we as the JPs are essentially doing all of it. So when we go in, we fill out our paperwork as we normally do, but we're also having to put in the arrest, and then we're having to go into that arrest and pull our forms, which are there's a bail form that has to be filled out, and then it generates more information over onto the PSR, where we actually pull up their criminal history and review their criminal history at that time. So how that's all going to streamline down from beginning to end, and us doing our certification somewhere in the middle, is a bit of a challenge right now. Not only that, when we get, say, grand jury indictments where there's maybe 20 cases back there, 20 people back there with like multiple charges, and almost every one of those have bond conditions attached. Well, we don't have to decide the bail in those cases, but we still have to do the bail form, and we have to enter every one of those bond conditions into that PSR. And they don't match. There's kind of a checklist of ones that they put in that they assume we're going to be assigning, and then there's the ones we as a county have already had in place as standard bond conditions, and they don't match at this time. So getting those bond conditions in is super time-consuming.
Because I understand, some of this information is redundant.
Yes.
We've got a form, they've got a form, we haven't been able to streamline it to make it more efficient. And the magistration process is taking, what, 2-3 times as long as it used to?
It's more than a full-time job right now, especially on grand jury weeks where you get those indictments coming in.
Okay, my question is, if a single person does this instead of all 4 of you, JPs, Is that going to make it more efficient and streamlined to have one person do it?
I think so. I think though right now we're still kind of waiting to see how the program develops because it's our understanding that at some point our systems and their systems maybe should be able to interface, but who knows how long that's going to take. We just don't know. We don't know what we don't know right now.
Hurry up and wait and see, huh?
Yeah, but right now it's a bunch of redundant work. But there are other counties in Texas that have had bond offices in place for a while. So I mean, we're looking at those. We're meeting pretty regular with the sheriff and the jail staff at this time. We're looking at what other counties are doing. I would encourage y'all to do the same. I know Rusty looked into a little bit of this back when he was sheriff, but
He warned us.
Yeah.
yeah.
We knew it was coming.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
we
I
won't-
think that's suggestive of it. Right now, the way this system appears to me is a way for OCA to capture every single thing we're doing back there. Where it used to, they wanted a number of how many, our clerks enter on their monthly reports, the number of people that were magistrate, all those numbers were always transferred over to OCA. But now they're looking at our bond conditions, they're looking at, essentially, it's going into a report that mirrors what we're doing into a report that OCA can look at.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners.
That was Judge French, by the way.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
J.R. Horn, Justice of the Peace in the Second Precinct. I would agree with my fellow JPs. It was pretty alarming. Earlier this week when I was sitting with Judge French Friday, Saturday, and then my own magistration on Monday, it literally took 6, 7, 8 hours. Normally something like that could take a couple hours. That being said, after magistrating the entire week and finally getting used to how the system worked, I am much less alarmed. And I think as we're seeing is the load is going to be initially at the data entry. Once they're first arrested, getting the arrest information, charge information down, and then of course afterwards being able to get into the system again under the bond conditions and all that stuff. So there's kind of like 3 steps: the initial data entry, the magistration itself, and then post entering everything that check the boxes. Yeah, we did read them their rights. We did look at their criminal histories before we set the bond and satisfy what Senate Bill 6 requires. I would say right now, well, for example, on Sunday morning when I came to magistrate, I had 3 Class Cs. And you don't have to enter Class C misdemeanors. So I was in and out of the jail in just a couple of minutes. That was an easy day. The key, of course, is going to be those days with indictments. And when you've got double-digit, couple dozen guys with multiple charges to do. I think a lot of this burden can be alleviated, again, right at the beginning. And that's going to be when they're first arrested. There is some command staff from the police department was talking about how we've had some changes in administration, and they were more than willing, whatever we can do to help. And I think probably at the data entry, if we can get arresting officers to do some of that initial entry, so it's sitting there waiting for the JPs first thing in the morning, that would be very helpful. Post magistration, when we've got to enter all the bond conditions, I found a simple way to enter that stuff, and that's a cut and paste. We've got those same documents from community corrections. Just copy the whole thing and then put it in that little section where it's that the defendant assigned earlier, then we can at least put the exact conditions that the district judge or the grand jury has entered that they've actually signed themselves. So I think, like I mentioned, it was looking pretty ugly. Now I'm not as concerned about it. It's more time consuming, definitely. I don't think one office or one person can do that. It's got to be little bites to the apple, because we need that information entered as these people are arrested and as we're magistrated. Now we do have 72 hours to get that information entered, and that'll come in handy on those indictment days. But once we get to our usual caseload of 6 or 8, whatever might be waiting for us every day. I think that we should be able to do that on our own, and then afterwards maybe some help from our clerks to get some of this information entered as required.
So you don't think we need another employee for this?
No.
I don't know.
What I'm hearing you say, I think, sounds like that having somebody come in on Monday morning after you've had a busy weekend would add to confusion that the information needs to be entered as it comes in.
Well, by Monday mornings, if I've done all that magistration, then there could be a part-time person that can come in. But like I mentioned, that there's going to be, sometimes you only have a handful of folks on a Friday, Saturday. And by Sunday, Monday, there's really not a, it's all going to be post-magistration. We're going to be doing all this data entry again. And I don't see that it's going to take, definitely not a full-time.
Is some of the redundancy eliminated if you change the county forms?
No, those two systems don't interact. What has to happen is that the sheriff's office will have, and their jailers, the arresting officers will enter the information into the local system, and then it's got to be re-entered into the OCA system for future decisions by.
Cut and paste, basically, a lot of it.
Some of that, yes.
But someone's gonna have to do additional work, someone has to, whether it's a arresting deputy or a KPD person, someone's gonna have to input it. So it's additional work, and it's making,
Is this gonna be a permanent part-timer kind of job, is that what you're thinking?
No, I think it is.
We're not sure.
Yeah, wait and see.
Wait and see.
But we're gonna rely heavily on the JPs getting together and coming to us with a plan. So we know.
Keep you updated.
Yeah.
Sure, see what other counties are doing. Similar size.
And we appreciate y'all coming in and briefing us on it.
Thank you.
I will say we anxiously look forward to it. We'll be ready for it. We've got a tight item at 9:30 that we're running behind on. Let's go ahead and call back. That's item 1.5, which is an update from Clint Morris on our new website.
Good morning, Commissioners, Judge. Commissioner Harris asked me to come in and just poke my head in and give you an update on where we are with our website development for the county. As many of you know, we have made a bold move to get the county website updated after many years of kind of going in different directions. So far, things are going extremely well. I have a lot of very nice things to say about your department heads. They have responded and given feedback. It's been very constructive. And we really haven't had a whole lot of terrible bumps in the road, knock on wood. So, really we're in a spot right now where we're hoping to have it in a position to hand to, well, we do things in stages. We're designing it first, and the department heads are able to look at it and make edits and suggestions. The next stage is it'll go on what we call a staging server, so that we get it actually built, but it's not in public view yet. And then we can do all the instruction with county employees and county staff to show them how to edit and do what they need to do before it goes live to the public. So that's the stage we're at right now, is we're about to get it to the point where we're going to get it up on staging probably in the next 30 days. And so it's been a little bit longer process than we anticipated, but overall we're very satisfied with the progress. It's been slow and steady. And it's better for us to hammer out some of the things we've had to do now than have to come back and do a lot of work to rebuild later. So, like I said, I have nothing but very nice things to say about your department heads and the staff I've interacted with. Thoughtful, taking the time to really look at what they need, and overall it's been a very good process. So, one thing I spoke with Commissioner Harris about is the issue of photography. Honestly, I don't care if it's a commercial business or a government body, whoever, the issue of having images to go on a website is always a challenge. And so in the next couple of weeks, I believe Commissioner Harris and I are going to work out getting a way for the public, if they'd like to submit photos and continue the process. We're going to kind of crowdsource some of this. There's a lot of great photographers in the Kerrville area. We're going to work on getting some information out to media about some ability for citizens and our professional photographers to submit some photos to use on the county website.
I think that'd be a great thing. We have so many things in Kerr County to be proud of. Of course, our river, we got the empty cross, we got rodeos, priders, you know, we have our stock shows, big stock shows and stuff. I mean, there's, and just everyday stuff, parks and what have you. And I think there's lots of great photos out there that could be submitted, and people would like to see their photos on our website. And get a library of them that we could change them out from time to time. So I would hope people would want to send some in.
Certainly, and you know, the alternative is to put together another budget for a photographer, and I don't think that really makes a lot of sense for anybody when we all have phones full of great photos, a lot of us. And so that's the stage we're at. So in the next, like I said, the next few weeks, be looking for some more announcements. We'll put that out through county media, as well as some press release, I'm sure, from the county about how to get your photos involved in that. So I do have, I think, our IT director, Bruce, I think we're going to have a get-together this week, just working on some mechanics of how things go forward. One thing, when we started to really dig in on this project, is we found 1,024 pages in the current county website. Some of those are directories of PDFs from Easterfest 9 years ago or whatever. So we got a little bit of house cleaning and some logistics to do, but overall, I would like to report that the team that you have put in place is working together nominally, and you have a lot to be proud of in your county staff. So.
That was my question, you just addressed it. So how did you develop a way to figure out what to keep and what to throw out?
At this point, what we did, the original intent was to go department to department and say, what do you want to keep, what do you want to lose? And we kind of changed direction on that and went ahead and rebuilt a new layout with the current content they had. But this period we're in right now, we've had county staff able to go in and say, you know what, that's old, it needs to go before you fully build it out. Or we need a new place to put this. And so if you'll recall from our original conversation, the intent here is to have each department head with the authority and the ability to go in and edit their part of the website without engaging hours from IT. So one piece of feedback that's been pretty consistent is, you know, the department heads are excited about not having to put through another process. They can literally just go to their desk and do it. Because you know, our IT staff is limited. And so it takes a lot of resources to be constantly, and so much of what we do now in both the private sector and government runs on the web. And so right now we're still, hey, I want this out of the way, I want to move this up here, can I have a section that does that? And we're accommodating all that. I'm still processing. We had a hard cut, not say a hard cut off, we had a please get this in by 5 p.m. last Wednesday, and so we are processing all of those requests. I'm sure that some more will come in.
The final thing, the goal was to have something user-friendly, and I think we all agree that the current website is not user-friendly. One thing that Clint showed me that is just amazed me is, you know, you pull up our website on this, where what a large percentage of people pull it up on the phone. And boy, you're steadily trying to find stuff. The new one's going to be bold blocks, just like you just saw on your screen. It's user-friendly for a phone to find stuff, and that in itself should cut down on phone calls to each department, foot traffic into the building and stuff like that. I know now people get frustrated trying to find stuff on our current system, and they say, the heck with it, don't even go there anymore. This new one will be different. So, I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. And about 70% of the web traffic in Kerr County is on a mobile device, which should really terrify everybody. Because people have been building things for desktops for a very long time, but the reality is that on a data basis, the majority of our traffic here runs on a mobile device. It's mobile ready from day one. Good. All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Jim. Okay. Before we take the morning break, let me clarify that was a timed event at 9:30. We have 5 timed events for 10 o'clock that we'll take when we come back. I'm sorry. Looking at Sarah. I know.
Mine will be quick.
Oh, I know. I know.
Which one?
But when we have timed events, the public is planning to tune in at those times.
Yes, sir.
To be able to see their event. And then we have a 10:30 event. And obviously, we're running behind, but we'll do the best we can with that. Let's take a 10-minute break and be back at 10:10. Before we come to order, we're going to move to the 10 o'clock docket, and that first item will be item 112, which is a public hearing regarding the installation of a stop sign at Highline Drive. This is a public meeting. I know we have some people signed up to address the court at this. So the meeting will come to order. Anyone that would like to address the court with regard to this topic is welcome to take the podium. And I know we've got Mr. Shields here and Mr. Lawrence. Is there anyone else that wants to address the court on this issue? Okay. And you'd like to, this is your opportunity to address this.
Okay, thanks, sir.
This is Mr. Lawrence. Please state your name and tell us where you live.
My name is Steve Lawrence, and I'm a new resident here in Texas, and I live in the Hills and Dales subdivision, and I was recently volunteered to be the president of the Property Owners Committee.
Welcome.
So, thank you. I guess I'm the one that started the ball rolling on this. I had a couple people in the subdivision that were concerned about people blowing through that intersection. And I don't know if you know the layout of the subdivision, but it's pretty steep from Highline intersecting with Looker Drive. Like I said, I really didn't know the procedure here, but I called the Road and Bridge Department. Boy, I tell you, what a easy group of people to work with. Very informative, very helpful, kept me abreast of what was going on and what I should do. They sent somebody out there, don't know who it was, but they looked at the situation and called me, the Road and Bridge Department called me back and said there's an issue with the big tree that was there too. And they said it would warrant that tree for better visibility to come down. And I was there when the crew was out there cutting the tree down, and one of the guys works for the volunteer fire department, and he said they've had calls up in that end of the subdivision, and they know with the bigger vehicles and everything, it's pretty tough intersection to navigate, because you have to look way over your right shoulder if you're coming down that hill and try to peek through your windows to see if anybody's coming. And the other thing is, just by going through past presidents' minutes of the township or the subdivision meetings, there's always been an issue about people driving too fast. I think the stop sign is warranted, and I hope that it would slow people down as well. So, in my opinion, gentlemen, I think it's a warranted application. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Mr. Fields, I know you're here to address this issue.
Mark Fields, and I am also a resident, longtime resident of Kerr County. And I stand before you this morning in opposition to this type of expenditure, questioning the need for this action by the court. No offense to Mr. Lawrence or to Road and Bridge, I question all aspects of this and respectfully ask the court to deny this request. I have not seen, nor am I aware of any traffic study having been conducted on this intersection that determines a need for this traffic control device. In my opinion, it's a solution in search of a problem. Looker Drive is the main access road for the residents of Hills and Dales. This is not a thoroughfare that the public would use to transit to another primary roadway. It's merely for access to the property owners of Hills and Dales. There are 6 intersections with Looker Drive. 4 of those intersections are private roads. The remaining 2, Highline Drive is one of the 3 roads that form the basis of 2 intersections. The second one being the intersection of Caitlin Drive, Clayton Road, and Looker Drive. They actually form a T or 4-way intersection, much like what we see out here on Main and Sidney Baker, only a lot less traveled. Highline Drive intersects with Looker Drive in more of a Y intersection configuration. None of these intersections, public roads or private roads, have any stop or yield sign. There is no traffic study of which I'm aware, so I looked into the appraisal district to come up with some numbers for your consideration. There are only 16 lots on Highline Drive, 3 of which are lots with land only, no structures. Of the remaining 13 lots with structures, only 7 have homestead exemptions filed, with the remaining 5 being absentee homeowners. In comparison, Catlin Drive and Clayton Road have 22 lots, with only 2 properties being without structures. That leaves 20 lots with residences, 17 of which have filed homestead exemptions with the appraisal district. It appears that this intersection, which is before the Highline Drive intersection, has at least 3 times the traffic than that of Highline and Looker Drives. But no request for any traffic control device is presented to this court for that intersection. Next, I checked with the sheriff's office to determine accident data for all of Looker Drive. According to their records, there has been an accident on Looker Drive since 2009. And that was a single vehicle accident that went through a fence. I believe that everyone in our county would stand on the side of safety for all of our citizens, including myself. But this is a solution looking for a problem. I am certain there are intersections in this county in more need of a traffic control device, such as this one, and where this kind of expenditure would be more appropriate. An expenditure like this for this particular intersection is fiscal waste, and I urge you to act responsibly and deny this request. And I want to point out too that Mr. Lawrence is right in that you do, as you're coming down Highline Drive, need to turn and look kind of behind you to make sure that there is no traffic coming. But what he has not pointed out is that Highline Drive actually separates or intersects Looker Drive in 2 different locations. The first one that goes up the hill. The second one is you continue down Looker and then turn to the left, and it goes up the hill on the other side of the valley. As you're coming down Looker Drive, where they're proposing we put this traffic control device, you can see all of Highline Drive, and you can see any cars coming long before you get to that intersection. The fact that there has been no traffic accidents on that intersection seems to indicate, to me at least, that the residents are quite capable of regulating their own behavior without the unnecessary expense by the county. Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to appear in the public meeting? There being none, then we'll adjourn the public meeting. We'll move on to item 1.13, which is consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to the Commissioners Court final approval regarding the installation of a stop sign on Highline Drive, Precinct 4. Ms. Hoffman.
Steve Lawrence, the president of the HOA for Hills and Dales subdivision, contacted our office requesting a yield sign at Highline Drive West. There currently is no sign at the intersection of Highline Drive at Looker Road. The county engineer reviewed this request and suggested that a cedar tree be removed, and the yield sign should be a stop sign because Mr. Lawrence originally had requested a yield sign. At this time, I ask the Commissioners Court for their final approval regarding the installation of a stop sign on Highline Drive West at Looker Road West in Precinct 4. And I did want to point out, and I know Mr. Fields had said it, I had included a map in here, and all of the roads that come into contact with Looker are all perpendicular to that road, and Looker comes in at an angle.
The tree that y'all removed, is it this one right here on the left
Yes.
side of this photo?
Yes.
Right there. That looks like it could be a problem. Yeah. But
Ms. Lawrence, we don't agree laws of cedar.
taking that tree out still didn't satisfy, in your view, the problem.
I mean, I'm sure it opened up the visibility on it. But I think because of how that road comes in at an angle, is a problem.
I better speak. Charlie Hastings, County Engineer. I reviewed this. The Texas Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices requires that you have a stop sign or a yield sign or something at every intersection to establish who's supposed to stop for whom. This intersection has nothing. We don't use yield signs except in specific situations, like maybe an on-ramp onto a highway. Yield signs aren't used at intersections, like residential intersections, anymore. If we have some out there, they will be or need to be replaced with a stop sign. This is just a very simple evaluation that we have an intersection and the minor road needs to stop before the major road. It needs a sign. It's not anything that needs to be questioned. It's in the book. It needs to be done. You don't have to have a traffic study. You don't have to have previous accidents. Nobody had to die there. And we're talking about the value of life. If you don't put that stop sign in, that could be somebody's life one day.
What about,
Wait, Carol.
Yes, sir.
so what about Caitlin and Clayton?
Yeah.
Where there's no stop sign or nothing at those two intersections as well?
Those were not evaluated. Would you like them evaluated? Do they need to be evaluated?
I guess, yeah. I mean,
I'm sure there's intersections all over. I'll go a step further. There's signs all over the county. There's probably intersections that need to be looked at. And if they get brought to my attention because the sign guy's out and he notices something, then I look at it that way. The other way is the people that live in this community are the eyes and ears. They let us know if there's a problem. So that's how it came across my desk. I looked at it. It's textbook. It needs a stop sign.
I guess my question is that, we're in a rural area. There's a lot of intersections that don't have any signs right now, but it's not that hard to figure that out. I mean, we're out on these roads all the time. And it sounds like what you're saying is that we should have a policy that every intersection has a stop sign, or a sign, a regulatory sign. And I'm not sure that's it.
It sounded like you said we do have a policy that requires that.
We follow the Texas Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. And
So that means.
just like a floodplain issue, when I find out about a floodplain issue, I go and investigate it. Same thing with
So
traffic
you
intersections.
apparently, when you were looking at this one, saw that there were others up there also, if you're gonna go by this rule.
No, sir. I looked at a map and saw that there was an intersection. I was told there's no stop sign there. I didn't drive out there, didn't need to drive out there. It's an intersection.
But we just heard that
Needs a
there
stop
are
sign.
other roads that are at intersections there, which is what.
And I'm happy to look at those when they're brought to my attention.
I guess it's a weird policy is my problem. I mean, I understand what you're saying, Charlie, and if it's in the transport, or whatever you call it, the manual transportation
Yes.
guideline, that we need to do it, then we need to do it at every one of them. Period.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that's financially makes sense.
I
to
think
me.
that's why it hasn't been done at every one.
But, I mean,
When it's brought up.
right.
Ultimately, the court has the authority to say no. You don't have to put it in if you don't want to.
No, I'm not familiar with that.
Code says that if, once you know about it, you should do something about it.
In that regard, I move for approval.
I'll second that. Councilman Williams.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve placing a stop sign on Highline Drive West as discussed here and presented today. Is there any other discussion about it?
Now, it was requested originally a yield sign. So even the people that came to us didn't think it needed a stop sign.
But you don't use yield signs in those situations anymore. right?
Correct. About 12 years ago, yield signs started coming out and being replaced with stop signs.
On average, Kelly, what does it cost to maintain a stop sign, let's say not annually, but every 5 years?
Right now, the pole, footer, and the whole thing to go install a street sign, nothing elaborate, is probably about $300.
Over a 5-year period?
No,
Or annually?
no.
Well, I know you have to go out and test them and make sure they have the proper reflection over time, so that's why I asked about the 5-year time period. How long do they last before they have to?
Just depends. The reds don't last as long as some of the other reflective materials. Just kind of depends, and we've got people who like to shoot holes in them, and people who like to steal them, people who
They're
like
gonna
to
definitely shoot holes in this new one.
damage them.
Promise.
So it just, I mean, it kind of depends, and if it has a lot of access for sun, you get a lot of sun fade, but I think we all know the red fade's pretty good down here, so.
You already cut down that cedar, so.
Well, you're the one that told me that it costs us perpetually to put up a sign.
It does,
Because
never
we have
lets
to
you
go
get
out
up,
and
never
check the,
stops.
you have to pay to check the reflected value and then replace it if need be and so on. So,
Yeah. Every time you put up a sign, there's perpetual maintenance.
Question for the county attorney. If the guidelines, the rules that we follow in this county, which I would support, say we're supposed to do it at every intersection, are we at risk if we don't do it at every intersection?
Well, maybe we'll have to save that for executive session.
I will be glad
I'm going to
to
exercise my
Okay.
discretion as
prepare
chair.
a memo for the court to provide legal advice at a
Okay.
later time.
All right.
I caught it. Okay, those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Abstained? So it passes 2-0, 3 abstentions. Abstentions don't count as votes, do they? No, we went through this.
We did go through this.
They don't count as
Don't
votes.
count as votes.
Right.
We had something passed by 2-0 before, remember?
We did.
Or 2-1.
So 3 people voted. 2 yes, 1 no?
No, not this time.
No.
3
Yeah,
abstained.
3 abstained.
So, but that makes it the difference because then there's a majority that abstained.
It's-
So the
we're just no
majority
votes.
didn't
It's a non-existing thing. That's the takeaway I had from the last time we did this, is if we abstain, we don't vote.
It's no vote, it doesn't pass.
So it's not a, but it's not counted, so it'd be 2-0, right? Is that what you're saying, Judge?
Yeah, it's 2-0.
Because the 0 is
Only
not.
2 votes cast. We've got a quorum here, but only 2 votes cast.
But you didn't have a majority vote.
Majority of those that voted.
The two, so it's like, well, yeah, no, y'all have to have a
Who's
3.
on first?
Y'all have to 3 be here. 3 people have to be here to be a majority. So 2 would not be a majority. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. Can we
Okay.
come back to this
Yeah.
and y'all move on and I'll come back.
We didn't need to make this any more complicated than it was.
There's people out there trying
But
to
there's
make
two
their
sides.
plans for shooting that sign.
Especially with subcommissioners
On San
advocating
Oh, San Jacinto, okay.
shootings.
Welcome to Texas.
All right.
Okay, moving on, the next timed item at 10 o'clock is 1.14, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve a reduction in a letter of credit for financial guarantee for construction of road and drainage improvements in the Paloma Ranch subdivision precinct 4. Charlie Higgins.
Thank you, Judge. The Paloma Ranch subdivision final plat was approved by the Commissioners Court on November 22nd, 2021, along with the letter of credit number 400640200, in the amount of $567,767.00. It was issued by Guadalupe Blank of Kerrville, Texas. It's a financial guarantee for the construction of roads and drainage. The roads and drainage have been partially constructed, but they're not complete, and the letter of credit expires on October 20th, 2022. Guadalupe Bank has authorized a reduction in this letter of credit in the amount of $207,815.50. Also, in your packet is, I believe they've shown that they have paid their contractor that amount for the work that's been done today. So they're requesting that letter of credit be reduced. County engineer requests the court approve a reduction in letter of credit number 400640200 in the amount of $207,815.50, bringing the new letter of credit amount down to $359,951.50 as a financial guarantee for the remaining construction of the road and drainage improvements in the Paloma Ranch subdivision precinct 4.
I move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the reduction in the letter of credit as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Next timed item, at 10 o'clock, is item 1.15. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the court to set a public hearing for 10 a.m. on May the 23rd for revision of plan for River Valley Ranch tracks 22 and 23. Troy Hastings.
Thank you. This proposal adjusts the lot line between tract 22, currently 19.35 acres, and tract 23 is currently 18.29 acres. Tract 22R will be 19.31 acres, and tract 23R will be 18.38 acres. Both lots will continue to front River Valley Ranch Road. The county engineer requests the court set a public hearing for 10 a.m. on May 23rd, 2022 for a revision of plat for River Valley Ranch, tracts 22 and 23, volume 6, page 387, precinct 4.
I move for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the public hearing for River Valley Ranch tracks 22 and 23 for 10 a.m. on May the 23rd. Is there any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Public meeting is set. Unanimous. 10:15 time item 1.16. I saw him outside. Do we need to? Matt Melton should be sitting out there on a chair. This item 1.16, consider, discuss, take appropriate action to approve a proclamation designating May 5, 2022 as National Day of Prayer, and approve or request to use the courthouse grounds for an event that day. Matt Melton.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for letting me come by. Would you like me to read the proclamation?
Yes.
Okay. Kerr County, Texas proclamation. Whereas America was founded upon the values of Judeo-Christian faith and freedom, and whereas throughout our history Americans have prayed for God's guidance and comfort where needed, and we have given thanks to God for the many blessings He has graciously bestowed on our nation since its inception, and whereas the National Day of Prayer is a day set aside by the Congress for all Americans to pray and reaffirm the spiritual principles upon which this nation is founded. And whereas across these United States today, Americans are uniting in prayer for our nation, states, counties, and communities, to humble ourselves in God's presence and to acknowledge our continued dependence upon God and give thanks for His many blessings, and to affirm our faith in God's unfailing mercy, love, and grace, and to seek God's blessings upon our nation, state, and local leaders as we ask God to unite and heal our land. And whereas in Kerr County, Texas, we choose to participate in this National Day of Prayer observance to demonstrate our honor of God and our dependence upon Him as we invoke His blessing upon all people of this country, our county, and upon all our local leaders who so faithfully serve among us. Resolved that Kerr County Commissioners Court, by adoption of this proclamation, hereby declare May 5th, 2022 to be the National Day of Prayer in Kerr County, Texas.
Any discussion?
I move for approval.
Second.
So, you seconded?
Yeah, I second.
Okay. We've got a motion and a second to approve May the 5th as the National Day of Prayer here in Kerr County. Any discussion?
Matt, what time will that be?
At noon on the lawn by the flagpole.
Okay. Very good. So, those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0.
Judge, if you want to go back to the other item, I found an opinion from, it was 2 years ago.
Okay. Matt, we approved unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, sir.
We have a technical
I
matter
thought you were done.
going back to item 1.13.
Because a quorum of you did not act, no action was taken.
Did not pass.
Because we have a quorum?
No, because a quorum of you did not act. 3 of you abstained, so only 2 of you acted, so it did not pass.
The abstentions outweigh the votes.
The abstentions were like a quorum wasn't present.
Right.
Basically.
You're absent.
Okay. So there's no quorum present.
Correct.
Well,
Well,
a quorum of you did not act. You
Right.
did not, so you can't have.
What if the vote was 2-1-2?
well then,
Just curious, just curious. Then there would have been a quorum.
And there would have been a quorum that acted, and
Yeah.
it would have
That makes sense.
passed. Yeah, and that's what, well, there wasn't the two, well, there was a two before, so that's what happened back in October of 2020.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
It was either 2-1-1 or 2-1-2, depending on how many of you were present that day.
yeah.
Does anyone want to reconsider that issue?
I'd like to,
I think you should. I think I should reconsider it, and I'll move to reconsider it. And my concern is something that will be addressed in executive session, but to not take action was not what my intent was. I can tell you that. I'm not sure we're ready to stop sign there, but it's been brought before the court, and I think we need to take action. So I'm prepared to change my vote and go ahead and vote for it, just so that we had acted.
you need to call for a revote?
Yeah. Anybody second that?
You need to announce what it is.
I'd like, I've recalled item 1.13, which is to consider, discuss, take appropriate action for the Commissioners Court final approval regarding the installation of a stop sign on Highline Drive. We voted and did not take action. And so what my motion is to reconsider the issue, take another vote to see if we act or not.
I'll second that.
Discussion.
I thought that's what the ruling would be, but I wanted to hear it from you.
Okay. We're learning the law of abstention. Okay. Those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Abstained. So it's 3-1-1. But I feel more comfortable that we took action. I think at the end of the day, we're not going to regret it. Okay. Moving on, the next timed item we've gotten there is 10:30, which is item 1.17, which is where is it? Jeff?
Yes,
sir. This is a general briefing regarding the communication system options for Kerr County Sheriff's Office and the volunteer fire departments. Jeff Wendell.
Thank you, Judge, Commissioners. Judge Kelly suggested this. I don't know where you all might want to start. Do you have a point of departure you want to ask questions? Or?
Let me
Yes,
kind of
sir.
lay the foundation, because I'm the one with the question. I was
Yes, sir.
meeting with the Sheriff's Office and the volunteer fire departments, as some of the rest, some of you have, and some of you haven't. There is a request for to update and modernize our communication system. And ours is working okay right now, but it is, we can see the end in sight. This was triggered because the city of Kerrville's system was not working nearly as well as ours was. And the city of Kerrville opted to go ahead and update and modernize their communication system using the American Rescue Plan funds that had been hotly debated in historical. They were followed by the city of Ingram, who said that they were going to update their system using the ARPA funds also. We've looked into this, we've worked with GrantWorks on it, we know that it qualifies, and we're not in danger of a clawback on it. This is about, we're looking at probably in the 5 to 6.5, maybe 7 million range depending on what we do. But this issue is something that is coming to a head, and I felt that this court needed to have some kind of briefing on it before all of a sudden we walk in one day and it's on the agenda and we've got to make a decision. And so what this was intended to be, we've got a workshop on the 18th, next week. In the morning, there'll be a general session, or we'll have everybody here. LCR will present in the morning, Motorola will present in the afternoon. And I didn't want y'all to walk into that without hearing at least some sort of helicopter view. You know, I like the bird's eye view. Tell us what we're doing before we have to get down in the weeds. So that's why I asked Jeff to come.
And Jeff is understanding, because I was at one of those information meetings for the Sheriff's Department. There's different, it's terminology that is tricky, and I didn't forget what the terminology is, but
I can tell you exactly what it is. VHF and 700 megahertz.
And trunking.
Trunking.
It is kind
And
of
simulcast.
Yeah, kind of define the terms in layman terms.
Okay, let me ask you this. Can we start from a 30,000 foot view?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what's happening in the United States and what's happening in Texas and what's happening in this area and your neighbors. So here's the context. ARPA changed a lot of things with the return of that tax money to the jurisdictions, and you all have debated that. Larger cities, historically, meaning San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, have operated on some type of simulcast or trunked system. And why? Trunking is an engineering feat that allowed for a more efficient use of frequencies available in a particular spectrum. 700 megahertz, 800 megahertz spectrums, VHF 150 to 1, for you all 160, the US government 160, 172. So, and then we have UHF, which is where the the ISD buses run off of and things like that. So we have a whole other layer there on UHF. For you all here in this county, for us, and I'm here today as an ACOG representative, as a regional interoperable communications coordinator. I get paid to do this. I've been doing it for years. So when you take a look at what your neighbors are doing, City of San Antonio in Bexar County spent $111 million to put a new radio system in. You don't think there wasn't discussion in man alive, everybody went to, it's very confusing for them because most people don't understand radio, but that's what they invested to replace their system with the P25 system. And P25 is the standards-based radio platform that we have been using for the last several years. It was agreed upon by all parties, and it is the universal in the United States. It's a universal platform for public safety. By the way, this is National Public Safety Radio Communications Week, strangely, a month.
Just forgot.
Yeah, mark that down, right down. So, when you look at our county, because I live here, right, the expansion, the growth, the traffic, for y'all have the opportunity to invest in a more spectrum efficient system, meaning trunking, meaning simulcast trunking, you're spending your money wisely. You have an opportunity, as I mentioned to several of you, an opportunity to catch up and get ahead of this thing on communication, public safety communication. There's a lot of detail, and I know y'all are smart, but I don't want to load you up with a lot of detail where you don't really take in much of what I'm saying. What I am saying to you is, and I'm endorsing the fact that the course you've set upon is a smart course. If you look at San Antonio, Bexar County, yes, they're on 700 megahertz because they're a dense city, and that's what they should be doing. But they also have VHF all over the place and gateways for us, like in Kerr County, to come in and go into their system. With the upgrade to trunking, you will have to purchase all new land mobile communication equipment. What does that mean? That's portable radios and mobile radios. Okay. No matter what you do, you need to make that purchase for at least two reasons. One, the gear that you're using is grants that Clay and I wrote 07, 08, and 09, I think, or 10. And that equipment is long past its shelf life.
That's the X series radios. You buy multi-band radios, and that gets you 7 and 8 to be able to communicate with the city directly, and we'll give you VHF and UHF, but give you VHF to be able to get up everybody up on their VHS tracking system. So,
Jeff,
sir,
I'd rather have a little bit more discussion.
Go.
And trucking is a concept that I had to learn.
Yes, sir.
Explain to us what trucking means.
Okay. Let me, instead of going to my prepared definitions, let's talk about it so we can talk about layman, right? As public safety grew in number, we went from 36 megahertz area and 42 megahertz on low band to VHF is where you all are now. Okay. As the number of individuals in different agencies increased, the public safety agencies, we had to find a way to be able to use the available frequencies more efficiently. So we started out and we would program it at a spread of 25 megahertz. And then we went to 12 and a half, and now we're at 6 and a quarter. That's one part of the efficient use of spectrum. Then, after we did that, then we didn't have enough frequencies to go around to be able to handle the loading, the number of transactions, meaning calls, right? And so trunking was developed. And trunking, in your case, probably is going to be a circumstance where you take the same 8 frequencies and put them on every tower. And they will then be controlled by your master controller. And those, instead of using 32 frequencies, you'll just use these 8. And that's called a simulcast system. Okay? So you end up having the opportunity, instead of having 1 or 2 people talk on your radio system at a time, to be able to have multiple people talking across these 8 frequencies because of your master controller. So when I pick up the microphone and I press the button and I say 4604 SO, and they come back to me, if I was on trunking, there would be multiple units that won't hear each other, that will occupy the same wavelengths and be controlled by the master computer. And that allows for an efficiency that you don't have today, and a loading you don't have today. So,
Jeff,
yes, sir.
Make sure I understand what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
What you're saying basically is the same thing as our phone lines. That there's a single wire maybe going through the phone line, yet multiple people can talk. And I only hear who I'm talking to. I only hear Harley, even though these two are on the same phone wire talking, but I don't hear them.
Yes, sir.
And essentially,
yes.
Conceptually.
Yeah, you and I are trying to dumb this thing down as far as we can so we can all understand it. And I'm with you. It's basically that. You're letting the computer do all the work for you. You're letting the core, which is the brain that sits in San Antonio, which is owned by DPS, and we'll put you on zone 2, which will connect you to San Antonio, which connect you to Austin, Travis County, we connected to Houston, next door neighbors here in Middle Rio Grande. We could ask for permission to be programmed up on their system also. What it,
Jeff, look, basically what we're trying to do is get a lot more bang for buck in the use of this thing, trunking and simulcast, and what they automatically roll over so that we can handle so many more calls.
Yep. Yes.
And facilitate communication to protect the public.
Absolutely.
And this is for public safety.
Yes, sir.
So the efficiency is just increased exponentially.
Oh, yeah.
With the trunking, and again, I'm not a tech guy, as Scott knows, I'm not. But I've learned that they roll over and you get constant use out of it instead of just having a point-to-point contact. And so that's why we're looking at these new communication systems, is because we're trying to be able to accommodate the higher frequency of use of our systems.
The number of people in public safety in your county is growing, as you know. The number of people to be served in your county is growing. And trunking will help you all better organize. As an example, a volunteer fire department, let's pick one. Let's say it's Ingram as an example. You put them on a talk group, Judge, it's like putting them on their own frequency. And everybody will have that programming in the radios, whether it's a sheriff patrol deputy or anyway, anybody that's on the system. Now, we'll get off and confuse things by being on the programming part of it, but there's selective programming that you can do for all the radios. But everybody will have a home, and everybody will be able to communicate.
But there's a couple of key phrases that this court's going to hear that I'd like you to explain.
Sure.
There's a big difference between VHF
yes, sir.
And 700 megahertz.
Sure.
And we're going to have one party on Monday pitching 700 megahertz and another party pitching the VHF that we already have. And if you can, just tell us basically what are the pros and cons, the advantages and disadvantages of these technologies.
Yes, sir. With the topography that Kerr County is blessed with, from a cost analysis, in my view, you have no choice but to stay with VHF. And why is that? Because of the topography, plain and simple. The other thing that please recognize again, you've already heard this before, but recognize this again, that your VHF trunking system is going to be built on the same 4 towers where you have transmitters and receivers, and your one microwave tower, which you have to have for the hop over the terrain. You already have 95% coverage on portables. And let me remind you of something else. Public safety communication systems are a 95% achievement. It's no 90%. That's for commercial wise. 95% with a 3.4 audio. 95%. You're already achieving that today, but you don't have the capacity to handle all the entities within your county in an effective way. That, you know, the ambulances that are running on the contract, you can eliminate their 3 repeaters. It just goes on and on. So 700 megahertz, if you went and got on 700 megahertz, you'd probably have to have at least 7 towers. And because I'm not an engineer, I don't know where those 7 would lie. You would have to have the engineers take a look at that and find out. I don't think there's 7 towers that exist in this county to be able to support a 700 system today. I don't think, it's my personal opinion, from what I've seen. Now,
well, one of the things that I learned.
Yes, sir.
And I sat beside him at these meetings, so we whisper sometimes. But in the big cities, a lot of them have gone to the 700 megahertz because it has better penetration inside buildings and structures. And in the big cities, that's very important because they have so many structures. Whereas with the VHF, is better for the terrain like we have. 700 is great in flatland counties, and you see them going up all the way to the coast because they don't have the topographical obstacles that we have. But what I understand is the old VHF, which is what we've been doing, is able to obtain better coverage in the mountainous part of the county, which, as we all know, it's 2/3 of the county, pretty easily. And so that's one of the reasons that we're talking to one contractor with one technology and another contractor with the other technology, so we can figure out what's best for Kerr County.
Correct, right on
And the
target.
thing you mentioned about the availability of towers, Jeff,
Yes,
so
sir.
that everybody understands, you're talking about positioning, there's lots of towers.
Yeah.
But not all of them get over the hill and relay to the next spot. So if you have 4 versus you can have 20, if you don't have them in the right place, it doesn't matter.
That holds true for VHF and 700. The good news, once again, is you already have a system that you all authorized, the court did before, which took you from analog to P25 digital, and it rocks. And this will just increase that capacity, I don't even know, probably 200-300% in terms of users and efficiencies, clarity. See, if you changed all of your mobiles and portables today, you would see an increase in the efficiency of the system that you're on because you're operating on this old gear. It's never been tuned up. The only thing it's add probably is a new antenna or a new battery. So let me just mention one thing on the judge's point. Because I had a meeting with the fire chief and the police chief the other day, and Chris asked me, Chief McCall asked me the same thing, or said the same thing about penetration. I said, Chris, we have products that we put in buildings like Walmart or Peterson that takes the VHF signal and amplifies it and barrages that structure. And I'm not talking about a piece of equipment that's $50,000. No, a couple of grand, maybe 5,000, something like that. But it penetrates everything for you. See, you'll probably end up spending as much in land mobile gear, meaning portables, mobiles, and other ancillary gear like that, as you will for the upgrade of your infrastructure, right? And that's just because that's what things cost. But staying with VHF, as a professional communications person, I will tell you that all of us in our committee that is part of ACOG, I'm the vice chairman of that committee, but we've talked about your county and we've talked about what in the best case scenario what to do, and that is stay VHF.
You started off saying, let me ask one little quick question.
Sure.
Here. You started off saying I get paid to do this.
I do.
What is this?
To
define that, please, for everybody.
Yeah, been on contract for several years as the Regional Interoperable Communications Coordinator for the Council of Governments. 14, I worked for them directly in public safety, and then the years since then, I worked 3.5 years in Bexar County on the same contract in the same position, and then we moved it over to STRAC. You all know what STRAC is, right? Southwest Texas Advisory Council on Trauma. I got to take a look at it myself. STRAC is the organization, and there's 8 emergency task forces in the state of Texas, and they're the ones that mobilize medical assets, ambulances, et cetera, hospitals to be able to take care of everybody during major events. So anyway, for the last couple of years or whatever, it's been 3 years, they just renewed me for next year also. So that's what I do as part of my contribution, if you will, and they're nice enough to maybe a little bit.
So you work, your role basically is to the members of the Alamo Council of Governments to advise the county to give us information. You don't represent any.
All jurisdictions, Commissioner, all jurisdictions. From recently the sheriff of Wilson County, they chose to go 700 because they're flat, like the judge mentioned. And anybody that needs help, I am not vendor driven. I may have my preferences and for real reasons, but I don't work for a vendor. So.
But the real importance was to use some of these terms with y'all today, so that when you come in Monday, and we start going over this stuff, you don't hear it for the first time. Yeah. And trucking, and you got cheat sheets?
I do. I thought maybe I'd give them to you and have you print them up for everybody, whatever you want to do.
Great.
Excuse me.
Pass them out.
Pass them out. We'll take a look at it.
I've just got one. I didn't know what you wanted to do.
Give Jody and Steve copies too.
Sure.
But this was just, I guess the bad thing is, this is to get us on the radar screen. To everybody, because we're gonna be dealing with this stuff.
Once again, and I'm patronizing you, I actually know some of you directly, as you know. This is like drinking from a fire hose. I mean, I've been doing this since 1978, and I put systems up. I helped put the system up here for the city. I put them up for them when I worked for the government. It goes on and on. There's so much to learn. But I'm just encouraging you, stay VHF, trunk, and just go on down the road with a smile on your face, because we'll be able to hook you up as a community where Chief McCall mentioned that he could have somebody in Waco and they could talk back to their operations here in Kerrville. He's right. And we'll be able to do that for you too. I mean, I have all that gear in my working vehicle, and I don't care where I am in the state of Texas, I can talk back in here through one of the systems that I have in my radios. So there's a freeing here that y'all have never experienced. Sheriff, of course, and Captain Walter and Chief Milan have, because they work for the state, and they know, because all their radios will program with every jurisdiction in the state of Texas. They have a very robust RF unit that takes care of them, and that's what we'd like to try to help you do, so that you have, you said that in this particular case, the city will be able to send an ambulance downrange to San Antonio, and they can check out on a radio, which now they can't do. The other thing, just to remind you, is that we also have the WAVE platform that I've talked to some of you about, and we'll continue to have that available for public safety as a backup to whatever else we do.
Okay. Thank you.
Good.
Okay. We need to get back on track. And I guess the best place for me to start, those are all the time backers. Ms. Pushno has been sitting here patiently all morning long. She's got 5 items on the agenda, and I think they're going to go very quickly. So let's start with 1.7, which is consider, discuss, take appropriate action to authorize Texas Parks and Wildlife Department contractors to spray the Arundo Donax. Is that how you say it?
Close enough.
Arundo?
That's good. Arundo, yeah.
Arundo Domax on Kerr County property. Ms. Pushno.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. Tara Bushnell with Upper Guadalupe River Authority. All 5 of these we've talked about before, and they're kind of continuation of programs that we partnered on previously. So this, with your approval, I'll be able to continue partnering with your staff, with Shane Evans and with Kelly Hofer, to identify the specific locations where the Arundo is located, so that it can be treated through Parks and Wildlife's program. It's an invasive plant species that grows primarily in riparian areas.
I move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to continue spraying Kerr County property for Arundo Domax.
Good. Let's intercept this. That is Kerr property owned by Kerr County.
Yes,
Right.
Not,
So it's within the parks. Primarily, we've done Flat Rock. Shane just let me know last week there might be some at Center Point Park, and then coordinate with Kelly on the right-of-way locations. And yes,
but this is county property, county-owned property.
county-owned property. We have a process to work with private landowners through this program as well, that they'll sign up to have their properties treated.
Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. 1.8, consider, discuss, take appropriate action to allow Texas Parks and Wildlife Department contractor to fill water tanks at the Hill Country Youth Event Center from the Healthy Creeks Initiative program to manage the giant cane Arundo Domax.
So when the contractors come to treat the cane, they need to fill up their 300-gallon water tank to mix the herbicide to take out its properties. They fill up at UGRA primarily at our spigot, but if they're on the eastern side of county, it'd be more convenient if they could also use water at the Hill Country Youth Event Center, and they coordinate with Shane Evans to do that.
And this is like we've always done.
Yes, sir.
Right. I move for approval.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to approve using the water Hill Country Youth Event Center for this project. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. 1.9, consider discuss take appropriate action to authorize an amendment to the interlocal agreement between Kerr County and the UGRA for the fiscal year 2022, water protection through the feral hog management program. Ms. Bushell.
We talked about this in September to approve that interlocal agreement for all of fiscal year 22, but then our board approved some amendments to it last month in March that just add additional detail to how the trapping equipment will be used and the terms for using it. And so we wanted to update the interlocal agreement to reflect those additional terms, which I think you have a copy of what those amendment terms are.
I move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the amendment of the interlocal agreement with UGRA for feral hog management program. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous.
I actually think we covered that about a month ago, right after y'all made y'all's changes, but.
Okay,
we're
y'all,
good.
you talked about it, okay.
Well, I attended a UGRA meeting in which they made that amendment. And I asked the county attorney to look it over, so there is a change.
Right.
That's the last thing you look at.
Which, yes, we'll just need to have the amended interlocal agreement signed again by the judge so that it's in place.
All these are really housekeeping things that we do regularly every year.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So we'll go on to 1.10, which is to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action on a request to use Flat Rock Park for the UGRA annual river cleanup to be held on July 23 at 7 a.m., 7 to 1.
Super excited to be able to have the river cleanup back again at Flat Rock Park as a big one-day event. We've been doing an on-your-own format the last 2 years, and it's been a great venue. You know, the volunteers will coordinate with them prior to the event. They'll spread out throughout the county, collect trash. They'll bring it back to Flat Rock. We generally use the area near the boat ramp and partner with the city of Kerrville to haul it away that day. We usually have about 500 people participate in it. We'll set up a registration area and some tables. It'll be in the same location as it's been previously, and any additional details I can coordinate with Shane Evans on that.
It's been a great program.
I move for approval.
So, got a motion and a second to approve the request for use Flat Rock Park for UGRA on the annual river cleanup day on July 23. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous.
Sarah, how many tons of trash do we pick up annually?
The last time that we had it at Flat Rock, we did about 10,000 pounds in that one day. And for the last few years in the on-your-own format, we've done close to that, 7,000 to 9,000 for those two events. And then we can add that also to the routine crossings cleanups that UGRA conducts. And I mean, we've had as many as 15 tons in a year, so.
And it's a great program. Volunteers are doing it. They're keeping our rivers and streams clean. Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, our final item is item 1.11, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the interlocal agreement between UGRA and Kerr County regarding Guadalupe River crossing patrols.
So this interlocal agreement, again, we've brought it to you, I think, since 2017. It just has a 1-year effective date, so that's why we bring it up every summer. And it's been a positive program for UGRA and for the constables who conduct those patrols. It's allowed us to increase observations at the crossings of littering, and we continue to track those. And have been focusing primarily on Ingram, Hunt, and Brinks Crossing because those have been traditionally the most used and where the most litter is located, but have additional wording in this year's edition of the ILA that just says possibly other mutually agreed upon locations too, in case we get some feedback that we want to expand it to some other locations, but we'll still continue to prioritize those 3.
I move for approval.
Second. Got a motion and a second to approve Guadalupe River crossing patrols. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now, one other, we got Ms. Gulledge is still here, so I'm gonna exercise discretion as chair and go ahead and call item 1.21, which is to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding red flag warnings in county parks.
Well, Judge,
Well, I feel sorry for you, but I feel sorry for making.
well, I agree, I agree with you. So yes, so the city of Kerrville has already issued a red flag warning for the city parks, which means no ash producing fires and no standing drift. I believe at some point we need to take that into consideration for the county parks as well. I know we have Easter Fest coming up this weekend. I don't see anything wrong with Easter Fest going on as long as we have some mitigation plans in place in the event that we're going to have a fire. Commissioner Gibson and I have already talked with Chief Holt, Volunteer Fire Department at Center Point, and they're willing to take a brush truck down to Flat Rock Park for the Easter Fest. I think something that we should add to that is maybe have all the participants or everybody that's going to have a fire take some type of fire extinguisher with them. My concern is that even with a small fire, the one in Crooked Creek that we had last week that burned up 160 acres was a real short grass fire. Once it got lit and into that wind, it doesn't take long for it to spread. And with all those people in that park, it's going to be very difficult, I think, for everybody to evacuate out of that park before they get to it. So I think if we have fire extinguishers in the fire truck, I think we'll be okay. Further on past that, we are still in a La Nina pattern as far as the weather. And it's probably going to stay that way till early to mid-June, which means warmer and drier conditions for us until then. And it's going to stay like that until probably first part of June, mid-June. Doesn't mean we're not going to get some rain, but it's not going to be near enough. So I think moving forward past Easter Fest, I think those county parks we need to ban open flames or ash-producing flames, fires, and standing grills.
The real danger then is really when individuals are out there instead of big massive.
Yes, sir.
And just to kind of clarify, got a call from Jeff Harris last week asking about Easter Fest, which we appreciate, and they did because of the red flag warning in the city parks. We put our heads together, turned it over to Beck, got together with Center Point Volunteer Fire Department, and we've got a solution for Easter Fest. We're looking forward to that. And the fire department's going to be there, a crew. We told them they can set boot out, let people throw some change in there to help them out. But realistically, what we're looking at here is the city has closed its parks to any type of fire, cooking fires, which means that the traffic is going to migrate over from the city parks to the county parks. And it means that we're probably going to have twice as much risk. I say twice as much. We're going to have significantly more risk in our county parks than we would normally have. It's one thing to be able to recruit our volunteer fire departments and encourage them to come out and help us with events. And that is the short-term plan. The real question is, do we leave the county parks unfettered access to cooking fires? You know, if we were talking, and this is just from my point of view, if we're talking about on Saturdays, maybe Sundays, that you can have a fire department, if a volunteer fire department is there. If we get a schedule set up to do that, rather than people just being able to go out anytime, any day, and we don't know if they've got adequate suppressants or not. I don't know. It's going to be an issue. And this is, we're talking here, we're mid-April. It's going to be a long 75 days to get to the end of June. With these weather conditions. I mean, I went out there yesterday afternoon and just kicked the grass and it just poof.
Yeah, it's one thing, just like weekend warriors that do brush fires and then leave and, you know, go back to Houston or whatever, and the wind picks up the coals and what have you. You have the same thing in parks, I guess. Somebody cooks some hot dogs and stuff, go home, but the coals are still there. Yeah, it's something. One thing I want to ask Lindsay about is, you think you could send out requests that the cookers, the ones that are going to show up, that they bring the fire extinguisher?
Yes, sir. We also have discussed, I'm the chairperson of Easter Fest, so I kind of have the quote-unquote authority to say so, that if your fire is left unsupervised, that's going to be a disqualification, that the fires need to be supervised.
But these are events.
Yeah.
And I feel comfortable that we're taking adequate precaution for events. I'm worried about day-to-day usage.
Yeah.
My firefighter's out there shaking his head.
It's not a lot of fun getting calls in the middle of the night.
I think it makes perfect sense right now to
Because, I mean, Center Point, there's a lot of tall grass around Center of Lions Park. I mean, if you get a north wind or you're gonna have a norther come through, it blows across the road, it's just gonna keep going for a long time. Even though it is right by the fire station. And same with England. I mean, if it goes down below the dam, which, it's far too easy to go that far. There's a lot of brush, a lot of, all of a sudden it goes up those hillsides. So I'm in favor of going ahead and banning the fires, other than events, and only if the events have volunteer fire departments on hand.
So we have a burn ban law, but we've never considered this part of the burn ban in the past ever.
Not in parks.
Not in parks. Now,
Cooking. In other words, a barrel fire, or cooking fire, or whatever.
at homes, we can't ban it. I mean,
Right, sure.
yeah, but in our county parks, you can.
The thing about it is we're actually infringing on people's liberty.
Agree.
Tell them that they're not going to be able to use county parks, except under certain controlled circumstances.
They can use it as can't cook it.
Well, we've had conditions like this in the past, and never did that.
Judge, I think you could allow propane grills down there. They make portable grills full of propane tanks, as long as they're using those and not something that's going to drop ashes and embers on the ground or blow them through the air.
Right. Shut it off, it's done.
Yes.
Well, start making exceptions and everybody becomes their own enforcer. Everybody becomes the fire police. So I don't know. We don't have to take action though. We're covered for the big events coming up. But this is a dialogue that we have to have ongoing. This is going to get more and more dangerous.
Well, we had conditions this bad and worse, and we didn't do this. So, are we just doing this because we're gonna follow suit with the city? Somebody planted the idea, it's like the stop sign earlier. Well, we didn't know we needed a stop sign there until somebody said we did. Now we know we need 5 more. I don't like this kind of stuff. I don't like the Me Too thing anyway, so. We've had it this bad and worse, and I trust the people in Kerr County, most of them.
It's the one.
All of y'all here, I'm certainly trust you. But, I get it, and having signs there asking people to cook with propane or whatever, I'm all for that.
Yep.
But your point is well taken, you start making exceptions, it's the argument of the beard next thing.
Everybody wants to debate their constitutional rights on the roadside.
Well, I think people have had a belly full of you can't do this.
I think just this discussion brings heightened awareness to it, and I'm sure that our media people will cover it. That will help.
Yeah.
We can get through Easter Fest, I think.
Okay. Any other discussion? Ms. Gomes, thank you for coming down. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Okay.
1.4.
Is Callie out there?
She's gone.
We go to 1.6.
That's all. I think she's coming back.
1.6.
Right.
Consider discuss and take appropriate action to approve the treasurer's office job description grade, the SOLA.
Treasury hoping you call that one.
I was trying to.
I know.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You have received the job description the proposed job description for the full-time position in my office, and then what I just handed out right now is the salary study survey that was done last year that showed what my part-time position should have been at, which is what I'm requesting for this full-time position.
And the job description is deputy treasurer?
Deputy treasurer / payroll specialist.
Move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the job description, grade step for the deputy treasurer payroll payroll, what was it?
Specialist.
Specialist. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Callie, are you gonna handle Callie's?
I am.
Okay. We'll go ahead and call 1.4. Consider discuss take appropriate action to approve the budget calendar for fiscal year 2022-2023.
This year, this is our tentative schedule that we put out. This year, on April the 25th, is the expected date that the judge will be presenting his proposed budget to Commissioners Court. Another highlight here is May 9th. The budget instruction manual and worksheets will go out to the departments and outside agencies. We ask that that be completed by June the 10th. We have June the 13th is when those budgets will be open for Commissioners Courts for y'all to look at. And then our first meeting with all of the departments will be June the 20th, and then followed up with those that can't meet them on June the 29th. This is, I think we pass it, but it is tentative, so dates could be changed if they needed to. But those we need to go ahead and probably, at least so everyone can schedule their vacations.
We need to adopt this.
Yes.
I move we adopt the budget calendar as presented.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to adopt the proposed budget calendar as presented. With the understanding that there may be some special circumstances where we've got some backup workshops on you, like in July, that we may or may not need. And if we have something come up and we need to reschedule one of these, then we can always come back.
Sure.
But we need to get something on the calendar that people are working around better.
Right. The board,
So tentative approval.
Yes.
It's approval, but
It's approval, but subject to changes needed.
Right.
Yeah, that's the right way to say it.
and we start planning our calendar as well.
So with that, those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, next. Move over to item 1.18, which is to consider discussion of appropriate action to determine whether to allow the retail fireworks permit holders to sell fireworks to the public beginning May 1 this year and ending at midnight on May 5 of this year in celebration of Cinco de Mayo. I'm not ready for fireworks yet.
so we have to be on this one proactive to do it.
No, you just don't, if you're,
No action.
yes,
No
that's right.
action.
No action.
Okay.
So no action means we're not selling fireworks. Good. So we're good at passing that? Okay, next, item 1.19, consider discussion of appropriate action regarding the FY 2023 Indigent Defense Improvement Grant from the Texas Indigent Defense Commission. We're getting ready to submit the grant. I think what deadline is what, May?
22nd.
May 2nd? And we need to make you aware that there are some developments in the PDO right now. We've got a meeting scheduled, I think, next week with the Oversight Committee to discuss some of these. The major thing that we need to advise you is that the 4 counties to the south of us that got a regional public defender's office at the same time we did, that's Atascosa, Wilson, Frio, and Karnes counties, have been with the South Texas Legal Aid, TRALA as we call it, Texas Rural Legal Aid, as their managing entity. They contracted with them to do it. They didn't form their own like we did. I guess the good news, bad news is, good news is that our model has become the premier model for the state. They like what we did, and we like what we did. And as far as accomplishing our mission, it's been incredibly successful. We had an oversight committee meeting a week or so, I guess 2 weeks ago, and and remember we got off to a slow start. because we didn't have a place for them in the office, but we've been in business now for right about a year handling cases. And they've handled over 4,200 cases this year, which is more than, well, that's at least double, isn't it, Sheriff?
Yes, yes, sir.
Than what we've done in the past. And of the 4,200 cases that they've handled, half of them, 2,100 of them, are dispositions. In other words, we have taken pleas or had trials or whatever disposed of 2,100 cases in the first year in office. And so we're very proud of that. And we commend the people at the PDO. They've done great work doing this. And that's the good news. I told you there's some bad news. And the bad news is that those 4 counties have realized that they don't like being part of Texas Rural Legal Aid. They've had to unionize, they've had to do a bunch of things that we would never think about doing here. And we knew that from the beginning. And for those of you that don't know, I was actually tasked by the 5 county judges looking into this to see whether or not we would go with Texas Rural Legal Aid. And I called Jim Allison, who is tax general counsel in Austin. We went through a long list of pros and cons of doing it ourselves or doing it through Texas Rural Legal Aid. And we concluded that this was the model that we needed. And it's proven itself. But because they don't want to continue their contract with TRLA, they have advised us, and pretty much I think it's public knowledge from the state now, that they're going to give their 90-day notice to get out of that contract. And they have asked to be part of our PDO, which would, and if you remember, we've got 5 counties. This is a huge change, more than doubles the size of the PDO committed. We are governed by an interlocal agreement. And Cody has copies of it. I had her pulled from me, executed copies of them. And the 5 counties agreed to do this. And there is a provision that if any of the 5 counties, for whatever reason, decide they do not want to continue with it, they have to give us 90 days notice. This is indeed Kerr County because we're the host county, which is for the end of the fiscal year, which means that would be late June. We have to have the notices by late June if somebody's going to withdraw. And there are those that would like to allow these other counties to join. And there are those that have reservations about whether or not we should take this major step in our first year of operation.
So go back to what you did with Jim Allison. You had your pros and cons. What's the pros for Kerr County in specific?
We customized it by doing it the way we did it. And all these regional PDOs, by the way, unless you are a public corporation, have to be hosted by a county. So that there's a county that's responsible, that gets the grant, and Kerr County is the hosting county for these PDOs. And then we operate together through the ILA, the interlocal agreement. That's the legal mechanism by which we operate. And if you recall, we adopted oversight committee policy of how we work together. We have an 11-member board, and of the 5 counties, every county gets 2 representatives, except for Kerr County, which is 3. And we have a permanent members of the board, which are the designated representative of the county judges, either the county judge or their designee. And then we have the other people that each commissioner's court of the 5 counties, appointed to this oversight committee, with Kerr County having an additional representative. So it's an 11-member board, 5 permanent members, and the primary function of that board is to hire and fire the chief of defense. It's not a micromanagement board. It's the hire and fire. But everything is still run through Kerr County because we are the management vehicle. We have, I guess the best way to say it, it has been cussed and discussed, and it is not resolved as to what to do about this. And so that will be addressed next week as to recommendations to make. But it ultimately always comes down to each of the commissioners' courts of the 5 counties make the decision for their county, whether it be in or not. There is no legal mechanism by which anybody can be forced to accept these new counties unless we agree to it. That's, the default position is withdraw. But you can't make somebody accept these new counties unless we agree to it. Nobody in Texas can make a county do anything. Commissioner's Court of each county makes those decisions.
Our participation is based on percentage, so that wouldn't change with this.
Well,
Or would it?
it just depends on how, there've been some discussions, and without getting into a lot of detail, one discussion was that we bring the 4 counties in, and have one chief defender for all 9 counties. Of course, you can see that control of the PDL will shift from the northern counties here to the southern counties. And those counties are much different and more diverse. I call them the difference between my square-headed rock farmers up here in hill country and the dirt farmers and oil interest shale, Eagle Ford shale in the south. But you would have a 9-member board if you did that, or not 9 counties. One proposal is that we keep the chief, who's done a good job, and he would just supervise all 9 counties. And then we would have maybe a north zone and a south zone. Kerr County hosts the north zone, and Medina County has offered to host the south zone. There has been a proposal that we take all 9 counties in and we move all management and control of everything to Medina County. That's back on the table. I've been there. Is some indication that if this PDO does not allow these 4 counties to come into our 5 counties, Hill Country Regional Public Defender's Office, that one or more of our existing counties, our existing members, may bolt and go from the south counties. So it's in play. That's all I'm saying.
Well, it's fun while it lasted.
We thought we had it too.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know.
I still don't get, I'm not hearing, and maybe it's because you don't really know and it's not clear yet, the dust hasn't settled, but what would be the advantage to them? What's the advantage to us? I asked what's the advantage to us. I don't think I got at least it didn't come across in my mind that there is an advantage. But why do they want to hook up with us then?
Well,
there must be an advantage.
The advantage, the way it has been presented, okay, is that we are the poster child for regional public defender's offices, and we've been immensely successful. Now we've had some administrative hiccups that we've had to work through this first year, like anybody. And if we do this, there'll be more administrative hiccups that we're going to have to work through, regardless of who has to work through them. But we would just be bigger, better, and more prominent, and much more of a role model for larger regional PDOs, which TIDC kind of likes the notion of that because they're in the business of building these regional public defender's offices. But it's almost more of a TIDC agenda than it is the 5 counties agenda. That's the advantage.
But bigger and better don't always go together. Smart and nimble go together.
We got it right, so let's mess it up.
We're new and still, and successful. And let's let it be successful a little bit longer.
Well, but
I think
I didn't want you to hear about this from somebody else. You needed to know that this whole thing is in play right now.
I get that.
We would definitely be bigger, better especially.
And they paid someone to help them put that thing together now. And they're paying, I assume, some continuing to pay. So obviously their advantage is they don't do that anymore. They just pay their percentage of being in the larger group.
Well,
so I get that.
But their poor choice has put us in this situation.
Yeah.
We chose wisely.
Right.
And we busted our buns to get it right. And we've been working to work out the kinks for over a year. And so I'm pretty proud of what we have. I'm pretty proud of what we've accomplished.
Exactly.
And I'm not ready to just throw that away without taking a serious look at it. But at the end of the day, the decision makers will be each county commissioner's court. That's the important thing. And if it turns out that 3 or 4 of us want to stay up here and 1 or 2 want to go down there and join them, they can do that. But there's one thing I do want to remind people is when all this was decided by TIDC a couple years ago, and we got the grant, we got the largest grant for the performing dogs. And we got $2.5 million on an 80-20 match that first year, and we're now down to 1/3 matches, which translates into about $1.7 million. Isn't that what we're looking at here, Tanya? About that? Which is a significant contribution from the state of Texas to help us with indigent defense in these counties that we've never had before. And it's tremendous, very valuable to all these counties. The PDO to the south, Atascosa, Wilson, Frio, and Lawrence, their grant was half of what ours was. So if you're in that one down there, they don't get near the amount of money from the state of Texas that we do. And we talked with the IDC, they're very flexible, they've been very accommodating, whatever it is that we ultimately decide we want to do. But our grant, the Kerr County grant, is the big grant. And that's to me, that's one of the major issues right there. They believed in us, they supported us, they gave us the money, we've proven them right. We're still working out little bugs here and there, but other than that, we think we've got a good thing.
Success breeds success. But once upon a time, I bought one of those Dodge Caravans with a 4-cylinder engine, thinking I was going to improve my gas mileage. By the time I got 4 kids loaded up in the back of it, my gas mileage was worse than I had before. So sometimes you're just towing too much for the little engine you got. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, I'm not suggesting that we have any action on this. I'm making sure that you know that we have met. We meet again next week, the Oversight Committee. I don't know what's going to come of that, but there is a time-sensitive deadline that these 4 counties, the southern counties, have to provide their written notice to Texas Rural Legal. And that seems to be the driving force right now. And the other thing that I would share, just by way of information, of our 5 counties, and to remind everybody, the 5 counties are Kerr, Bandera, Medina, Gillespie, and Kendall. We're Hill Country County, or at least 4.5 of us Hill Country County, for sure. Part of Medina County got a lot of dirt. In any event, of those 5 counties, 3 county judges and several other members of the Oversight Committee did not run for re-election, and they will not be back. There are only 2 county judges left that are permanent members, and that's Judge Evans and myself. Everybody else is gone on the permanent members, or will be gone. And of the 4 counties down south, 3 of those county judges did not run for re-election. So they'll be gone. And the only county judge down there is a good friend of mine, Wade Hickey. We just had his first child as a young man and had a very, very busy life. And he spread pretty thin.
What county?
Carnes.
Carnes.
Cut from an old family down there. But that said, our experience level for running the board is thinning significantly. So, and that's where our management experience is, along with our employer staff. Yeah. We're proud of the PDO. We're getting ready to talk to Vanessa here, but at the same time, we just have to be realistic that these are decisions that we're going to have to deal with. So we'll pass on that and move on to item 1.20, which is consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve an increase in the position schedule for vacant legal assistant positions to hire within the approved range. Ms. Scobah.
Yes, Judge. We have 2 vacant legal assistant positions, and we would like to hire within the approved range for both of those.
This has been one of the growing pains, trying to learn how to do this. The PDO is not an independent, autonomous, self-managed entity. It is part of Kerr County. And just like all other departments and offices, whether you're elected official or not, I've had to learn to work with the Kerr County system. And we all know it's not perfect, but we're getting better. But this one is a request to be able to go ahead, and we've dealt with these issues before. But we need to approve the new positions.
I'll move for approval.
Second to the question. And Vanessa, the reason basically you don't want to hire necessarily at the lowest end of that range because you're trying to hire people with experience already for that job?
Yes. It will serve us a lot better to get people with a little bit more experience that can go into the position faster, especially with 2 vacancies.
And just to, I guess to clarify, one of the differences between the way Kerr County does this and the way TIDC's grant was structured, at our request, by the way, we asked for these ranges, Vanessa. We did, because we thought some of the salaries were a little high. We did this at the planning stage at the beginning. Kerr County works off its position schedule. And we have people in positions, and if they leave, then we can bring people in and fill that position per that schedule. And when we brought in the PDO, they had ranges, and we wanted the ranges, we wanted the flexibility of the ranges to be able to attract more qualified people. And so they have a range, whereas we have position schedules. And making this transition we've stubbed our toe a couple of times here, trying to make it work. We had a couple of people that actually got hired within the range that we couldn't pay them because we didn't get to the court in time to get it approved. And so, can you imagine having to go tell somebody we can't pay you what we agreed to pay you because we've got personnel rules that have to be followed, which we're sorry about, and you've been a good sport about it. I thank you again. So you're just asking us now to go ahead and fix this problem as best we can.
Ahead of time before we offer.
I think
And this isn't at the top of the range.
No, we have one that we're interested in. It won't be at the top. The other one is still an open position. We're still looking.
But she didn't get approval in time last time.
Yeah.
And we all ended up with egg on our face, and that's not good for anybody. So she's come to us in advance to do it the right way. She's learned how we do it.
Lesson learned.
Lesson learned, yes.
This is something we need to remember to look at in the budget.
Yeah.
And Jennifer's going over our kind of policy right now. Whenever you hire someone for a position, our rules right now basically say you go in at step 1, unless you come to court for approval, then you go hire. And that's what's been done most of the time. Those people come in at step 1. There are positions where you're losing someone with 10 years experience, 15 years experience. It's really a key person. You can't fill that slot necessarily with somebody at a step 1. So you have to do a whole reorganization, which is good sometimes. You can promote from within. But in other offices, it's just, you can't get a qualified person. So we need to look at that part of the policy, I think, and see, if there's a little more flexibility.
I thought we had decided to do what you're saying, which is just take it on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, and that's what we do.
That's what we've been trying to work out, these little hiccups.
Yeah.
But Vanessa, please understand that as we go through the budget process here that begins, as you can see shortly, that's where we really go ahead and define compensation for those positions in that schedule. So this is something we need to pay attention to this year.
Yes.
And so all I was trying to put you on notice is we're going to go ahead and submit the grant application the way it is. That's the plan. And then if we have to adjust it.
And the other thing is makes this a little bit more confusing. We're hiring for 5 counties. And everyone's paying, you know,
Everybody has their part to throw in the pot, sure.
and not just that, but they're also working in these other counties, and I mean, it's a challenge on folks in some of these issues.
Now, if you look on your agenda, on the next page, you'll see that we're gonna go into executive session. And she's gonna be right there at that podium where she is right now, talking to us about the specifics, because we can't talk about the individual employees in open session.
Yeah.
I think that one's about different employees.
Well, okay. Whichever. Okay, so we've got a motion and a second to go ahead and approve the increase in the position schedule for the vacant legal assistant positions with the higher within the approved range. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Okay, let's move on to our approval agenda. 2.1 are budget amendments.
On Friday, budget amendments were passed out. These are 2 departments, and they're just small transfers. All, highest one is $525. They're all line item.
Move for approval.
Motion and second to approve the budget amendments as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. 2.2, pay bills.
Invoices for today's consideration, $1,470,353.15.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the bills as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. 2.3, late bills.
There are not any.
2.4, auditor reports.
It's not a formal report. Last week sometime, the director of IT, Bruce, and the county treasurer and her staff, and then HR and her staff, and the auditor's office staff all met together to talk to Encode about the moving to Encode 10. That will be a major change, and so we're still researching it right now. I just wanted to put it on your radar, but that is something that will need to occur.
That's something that is very customary among counties as you grow.
Yes.
And it takes us, what, to 10 digit, is that it?
It takes us to a 3-digit phone number, which will impact everybody.
So, right now, we cap out at 100, but this will give us more accounts.
Which we need.
This
Funds.
vendor accounts? What kind of accounts are you talking about?
Fund
for the-
accounts.
Fund account.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Then 2.5, monthly reports.
Yes, for March 2022, Treasurer's Payroll Report, Tracy Sullivan, County Clerk Jackie J.D. Dowdy, District Clerk Dawn Lance, Constable Precinct 1 Tommy Rodriguez, Precinct 2 Kyle Snyder, Precinct 3 Paul Gonzalez, Precinct 4 Brad Ryder, Justice of the Peace, Precinct 1 Missy French, Precinct 3 Kathy Mitchell, Precinct 4 Bill Ragsdale, Environmental Health OSFF Director Ashley Batters, and County Auditor Tanya Shelton. I move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the monthly reports as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Court orders.
We have our court orders from our March 28th regular meeting. The court orders 39247 through 39258. They all look to be in order. Move for approval.
Second. Got a motion and a second to approve the court orders as presented. Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Okay. Moving on to the information agenda, 3.1, status reports from department heads. Yes, sir.
Just something I need to bring to y'all's attention. There at the Road and Bridge office, one of the breaker panels, and it's a large main breaker panel in their maintenance shop. It controls the maintenance shop, gas pumps, and there's another building out there that takes care of it. But the breaker panel is eventually going to need to be replaced. there was a bus bar that holds all the breakers. It went out, and we did get it repaired. But one of the way the Christians put it, it could last 6 months or 6 years, and when it goes out, then we lose service to their maintenance shop, the gas pumps, the wash racks. A pretty big deal. So and after speaking with Kelly, she's okay if we budget it and fix it within the new budget, because after, it could cost anywhere from $5,000 to $6,000 to do that right now. Which I have it, but it's gonna put me kind of short at the end of my budget. So I was just gonna bring that to y'all's attention and maybe, budget more money for, to have that replaced and scheduled replacement.
It's on our radar screen. Thank you.
Yes, that's it.
Any other department head reports? 3.2, status reports of elected officials. 3.3, status reports from liaison commissioners.
On that, the new temporary building for animal control is on schedule. Dr. Reagan was warning about it. It's under construction right now. I believe all the permits for the city on our side have been approved, so it's on track.
I have one little thing, and it's about IT. And we have an interesting little cooperative thing going between AgriLife and the county. We take care of maintenance, and we share, and we have to buy the, correct me when I get something wrong here, Bruce. We have to buy the hardware in order for us to work on it. They provide a certain software for that equipment, so it makes for, at times, some difficulties. So I met with folks at AgriLife the other day to talk about the IT needs, and we're working that out so everybody knows what's going on. They need more laptops for in the field. Those all have to be loaded with the software that Texas A&M uses. And so they really need it. So just like they needed the band, they need this stuff too.
We'll work the bugs out. That's all we can do.
I've got notice this last week that our primary veteran service officer, the reason scheduled to go back online in May is going to be retained until July, which I hate to do. And I will compliment Jenna Sanchez, who signed up for this as a part-timer. She's still been full-time and been more than this year for what she signed up for, but it will be July the 4th. More to get back.
Well, I guess this is faint praise. We picked a really good veteran services officer, and the Air Force wants to keep her all the time. We'll give her back. So, but, again, thanks to Jen for all that. She's done above and beyond. Okay, with that will end the open meeting part of the court this morning. And we will go into executive session. Take a 5-minute break. 54, you're out of executive session. We have no action items, so with that, we're adjourned.